Well, well, well. Well, we got hell, ladies and gentlemen. I always forget that door. Sorry about that. Look, I love doing my reviews. I really do. And I thank you all for looking at them. But to be honest, after seeing this Cleveland, Ohio Impact just before No Surrender, I didn't want to do it. This show was so botchy and just made almost no sense in some ways that I was turned off, really. I mean, character development was done. Teases were done. The people who need to be in the positions needed to be done. They were done. But I did not like the show. So I'm doing this because I love you guys enough to do as fair as the most fairest reviews possible. This is not the first time I had to redo this video, ladies and gentlemen. I just could not bring myself doing this very well. So let's get this over with first. When it came to the first match of the night, Zane versus Mike Knox. Seriously? Zane, who's supposed to be an ex-world champion, who's supposed to be getting his rematch clause, is facing a total jobber that has barely been seen as a Mike Knox. If it was one of the, I don't know who, someone else other than him. When I saw this from the opening segment, I knew when I heard this, I wasn't going to like it. Not only was my expectations realized, they were surpassed. Because the match itself was sloppy. The crowd was not into it. There was almost no interest in this match. Because nobody wanted to see Zane versus Mike Knox. You could have put Zane with someone else. But you put him with Mike Knox, which was a piece of crap. And then the botchy hammer was brought into play. And instead of being... That's why I had to do this over a couple of times. It wasn't the fact that people were booing, at least for me, that they were booing because Mike Knox won. They were booing because they're going, what the fuck? Zane hits Mike Knox on the back of the head with the botchy hammer. He could have just thrown it out the ring. But instead he uses it. And that really turned a lot of people off. As far as I'm concerned, it turned me off. But then when we saw the segment with Velvet Sky and him, and that looks like a tease of him turning a little dark. This is where things get a little difficult for me. It might not be a bad thing for Zane to turn dark. But it is kind of foolish because you brought him back as a face. He wins the championship as a face. He has a rematch clause as a face. But now you're teasing that he could turn heel. That, one, makes me very antsy that this is not going to go down well. Two, you currently have two faces for the knockouts. That's ODB and Velvet Sky, and I'm getting to her in a minute. If you are going to pull this off, where Zane's going to turn dark, you need his girlfriend to turn dark with him. So that's Velvet Sky. We already have a Miss Tessmacher who's now dark, who's turned heel, who looks like is not in the main title scene, at least not yet. She's still with Bully Ray. There's no mention of her even being seen with a Velvet Sky, an ODB, or a Gail Kim. No sign of her yet. And not even talking about Mickie Jane yet. But essentially, you don't have her there, and you already got one woman who's turned heel. If you're going to tease something about them splitting up, or him going with her, this is going to make the storyline so bad. You only got 4 women. And Miss Tessmacher, who can make it a 5th, is a heel right now, and she's working something else. How the hell are you going to make this work? So this tease is strange. But in a sense, it's kind of nice to see that they're trying to tease stuff, but it doesn't make any sense. So let's move on. I'm going to the gauntlet match right now. I could go to ODB and Mickie Jane later, but I'm going to talk about it later. The gauntlet match, which was badly promoted 1 week, and even more than that. I mean, the BFG series was badly constructed. I wasn't minding the bad mess of the BFG series as long as certain things were done properly. And certain things were not too bad. I mean, AJ Styles was rising a little bit. He was doing not too badly. You got Austin Aries, who did option C that made it a little more interesting. But then it just went off the rails after that. It just looked bad in the last month and a half. It just looked bad. So when Hogan brings out this gauntlet match, a lot of people were pretty pissed about it. I wasn't too upset because this still could bring up a Austin Aries and AJ Styles who are down below the red line. But the opening of the match, you got Chrissy Hemme saying it's a battle royal, really screwed it up. But then just before the match, you have an interview with Jay Bradley and Hernandez. Are you seriously bringing out two guys who've not talked at all, who've done almost nothing, who I believe both of them have 7 points each? You give them a interview where Bradley says, hey, to Hernandez, I just got paid some good money. I'm giving you an offer. We're going to do some business in the ring and I'll split it with you. What the fuck is that? You could have done this 1 week before even it was announced, the gauntlet match where Jay Bradley met someone strange. You could have set this up quietly, showing a guy in the background or a phone call saying, oh, there's something really big going to happen? Oh, this big that's going to happen, you want me to get paid for it? I'll consider it. That would have made more sense than this interview with Jeremy. It made no damn sense. And then when they put it into the ring, it even was more awkward. The crowd was not into this. By the middle of the entire gauntlet match, most of the crowd's interest was divided. They didn't even know how to feel. A lot of people were screaming. Some people were angry. They were booing. Some people were yelling happily. It was so mixed. And then what happened with Anderson, which he could still be hurt, that fall he took after he took a kick to the shoulder by a Samoa Joe, and he whacked his head into the one thing I can say about the WWE, at least they give some decent padding on the guardrails. I think TNA should consider that, because being more old and traditional does not mean it's safer. I'm not saying that these guys need to have it so easy, but come on, put some light padding on there so at least they don't get too badly hurt. And he looked like he might have gotten hurt. The ref was calling for this. He was calling for some aid, so he could actually be hurt. He may be working hurt now. We don't know. But at the end of the match, we have an AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels. I really thought it might have been Magnus at the end, but AJ and Christopher, if you're pushing AJ the way he is, he had to be there, because from last year to here, Christopher Daniels has been tied to AJ by the hip. As much as we don't like to see them over and over and over again, and the crowd wasn't totally into that short spurt they had, they weren't, but still it was necessary. AJ wins, and we move on to the next segment of who he picks. Now, I didn't expect him to pick anybody than Austin Aries. My thought is this: for No Surrender, you're going to see two people who are going to emerge out of this. Two, you're going to see AJ Styles, and you're going to see Magnus. I really believe these are the two you're going to see. If it's the flip, then they made the most serious mistake to consider. AJ, even in his diminished character, which I'm going to say it like this simply. When he first came out dark, if they had left him with Storm, to have at least a month or two program would have been better than to make it only a few weeks, cut it off, let AJ go up against a Kurt Angle, and then lose his very first match as a dark character. That's the reason I believe AJ never got true traction. If he had won over a Kurt Angle clean and vicious, his darker character would have skyrocketed. But because that didn't happen, because they wanted to make Kurt Angle look good for Slammiversary before he had to go into rehab, drunk ass motherfucker. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude. I'm sorry. But you get my point. AJ would have been a lot more over than he is now. And in this case, I didn't see anybody else but Austin Aries for No Surrender. But I do believe that at the end of that night, when I believe they got to face one another, or they face each other at Bound for Glory. I'm blanking on when. But either way, either at Bound for Glory or at No Surrender, you're going to see a good match from these two. Now, moving on to the ODB and Mickie James segment. I love me my Mickie James. Oh my goodness, when you saw her walking to the ring, she looked so damn hot and luscious. I say this right now. I'm a guy that I don't really care what you look like. If you want me, if you let me touch, I'm happy. Doesn't mean I don't have preferences of a woman's body type. I will take a woman for what she is. Guys like big boobs. Guys like small boobs. A lot of guys like more big boobs most of the time. But when you saw a ODB rip that shirt off of her and that small top, I know more than a couple of guys froze that camera shot and was looking at her boobs hoping there would be something there. I'm one of them. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be nasty, but look, I love Mickie James' heel turn. She's become a lot more sexual. She's become a lot more sensual. As much as ODB as a heavy-chested woman who's not a bad-looking woman, comparing the two right now because of their characters, ODB, who was over by the Cleveland, Ohio crowd, didn't look as sexy and as seductive as a Mickie James. Now, I'm not saying ODB couldn't play that, but she's been locked in the same character for so long, she's actually quite boring. She's very generic, and I'm bored. But does this mean this couldn't be a good feud? No, it could be a good feud for as long as it's going to be, which is probably going to be about 5 matches. That's how I feel about it. After the 5th match, I'm going to be bored with this because they have no one to work with. If Miss Tessmacher gets thrown into the mix, you're going to have 3 heels and 2 faces, counting if Velvet Sky stays face. Like I said, I don't know what's going on with her and Chris Sabin. Sorry, I'm getting things mixed up because this show was so botchy. I'm botching. Like I said, this isn't the first time I've done this. And I've been pissed off because the show was so bad. But you get my point. You don't know how many people are going to have as heels compared to faces. So we got maybe 5, maybe 6 matches with these two before we really get tired of it. So I'm going to move on to the Storm and Gunner versus the heel twins, as I call them, Wes Briscoe and Garrett Bischoff. This was a train wreck. It wasn't the fact that it was so botchy. It just felt empty. Look, the tag champions have had no one to face. The only person they face is Bromance. And even then it was shortened in between. Storm and Gunner have had no time on screen. So when this match actually happened and you got 2 undercarders like Garrett and Wes, you got almost nothing to work with. Hell, at one point, Garrett Bischoff looked somewhat better than Wes Briscoe. I can't believe I'm even saying this because Wes Briscoe is a better looking talent than a Garrett Bischoff. But Wes acted so fucking stiff. Like he couldn't even move like this. The guy's ripped, alright. But he looked like he was like a fucking piece of steel. He couldn't bend. And then when it came to one part of the match where he should have already put his foot up so Wes Briscoe can push Gunner's monster's head into his boot, Wes has to be told by Garrett, hey, put your boot up. What the fuck? In the end, what did we get? We got the heel twins winning this match. So that makes me feel that they're moving away from aces and eights. So that's a good thing, but also it's a terrible thing. Who wants to see Wes and Garrett Bischoff, Briscoe and Bischoff, tag team champions? Put that in your mind for a minute and tell me if that doesn't sound terrible. Okay. Breathe. Oh. Last match. Sting versus Bully Ray. The opening segment with Bully Ray and the group, seeing him hug them, didn't interest me at all. Seeing a segment in the back with Bully Ray and Anderson having their basic final confrontation before the match just enforced what I said. They're going to match each other. When the match came, it was like Slammiversary pretty much. Literally, Bully Ray cutting the ring so he can be able to power drive Sting. But didn't happen. What did we get? We get Anderson, who was supposed to throw the Bolting Hammer to a... Oh, this is the reason why I'm getting frustrated. Look, I knew this had to happen. You had to have Bully Ray get screwed over by Anderson. It happened. Do I believe I want to see this? No, but this is what needed for the storyline. The best thing I can say that was done at the end of the night was seeing a Mr. Anderson screaming in the face of Bully Ray, and I really hope that gum had some life in it, because who wants to see you screaming, Big Star? If your breath stinks, I don't want to smell it. But screaming that I'm coming for your championship and I am Mr. Kennedy, it wasn't 100% bad. I was alright with it. How do I want to rate the show? I don't want to give it a rating. It was so botchy. It was so uncomfortable. I didn't like it. Look, at one point, Mike Knox, Garrett, and Wes were in the back after Mike Knox got the noggin hit by the Bolting Hammer of Saving. He's eating a sandwich with a whole bunch of shit in his beard. Like I always said, Mikey, he'll go, give it to him. He'll eat it. He'll eat anything. What did he just do? He said, hey, the guy who was doing the reporting, hey, you know you got something in your beard. He said, that's my dessert. Like I said, give it to Mikey. He'll eat anything. I don't want to give this a rating. I'm not going to give it a rating. This was a botchy show because of a bad dealing with the Bound for Glory series. They just went off the rails with it. They did. Bound for Glory just, in the beginning, maybe the first 2 weeks after the preliminaries, which weren't that very good anyway, it just went off the rails for me. I was hoping it would improve, and in some cases it did. But this show just reiterates what more than a few people said. I'm sure NJ or Fool Killer 99, and whenever the Slug Daddy has the time to put up his videos, he's a busy man living in Virginia. So if you're missing something, just be patient. He will do it. I'm waiting. But you get my point. I'm sure they're going to say that this was not good. So I hope you enjoyed the Zane review, and subscribe and comment to my channel. Give me an idea of what you think of this Impact. Maybe the ratings might have been up because it was so different. But it just felt really bad for storylines, for character development, even though some things were done. And Storm and Gunner having to face the heel twins and lose, they deserve better than that. Peace!